Welcome to The Explainer. In the world of AI, there's nothing quite like the hype around a new model from OpenAI. But when GPT-5 finally dropped, the conversation wasn't just about cool new features. It was a battle between hype and reality. And the hype was, well, it was incredible. OpenAI's CEO, Sam Altman, was out there teasing world-changing tech. As this Reddit user points out, the marketing machine set expectations sky high, to say the least. But the second GPT-5 actually arrived, the tech world basically split right down the middle. For every person who saw a huge leap forward, there was someone else asking, wait, was this just a really good marketing campaign? So what's the real story here? To figure that out, let's start with the official story from OpenAI. What exactly were they promising us? The company's messaging was anything but shy. They called GPT-5 their smartest, fastest, and most useful model yet. And they were pushing this idea that it was a truly revolutionary upgrade. The message was loud and clear. This wasn't just a small step up, it was a massive leap forward for AI. And they brought data to back up these big claims, especially around reliability. This chart is a perfect example. On HealthBench, which tests complex medical knowledge, the error rate just plummeted from almost 16% in GPT-4 all the way down to 1.6% in GPT-5. I mean, in a field where getting it right is everything, that is a huge deal. The claims about it being smarter were also backed by some pretty stunning test results. On a really tough high school math competition benchmark, GPT-5 scored a perfect 100%. You compare that to the last model, GPT-4o, and you can see the difference. A perfect score suggests a serious jump in its ability to actually reason through problems. Okay, so the official story is a faster, smarter, and way more reliable AI. But then, it got released to over 700 million weekly users. And that's exactly when the official story collided head-on with what people were actually experiencing. On one side, you had reports of Sam Altman comparing this thing's impact to the Manhattan Project, literally a world-altering moment in science. But on the other side, you had this growing wave of users, like this person on Reddit, who just felt totally let down, saying it was all marketing. That massive gap between the hype and the reality is really at the heart of this whole controversy. For a lot of developers and the people who really push these tools to their limits, the update felt like a step backward. This coder on Reddit is saying that for their project, GPT-5 was actually worse than the older version. It was slowing them down. Stories just like this started popping up all over the place, and they painted a very different picture from OpenAI's shiny benchmarks. So pretty quickly, this counter-narrative started to form around a few key complaints. The general feeling was that this wasn't a real frontier model, but more of a cost-cutting move by OpenAI, like a repainted older version that was just cheaper for them to run. And people felt misled. They didn't like having less control as older models they relied on were taken away. And you know, that cost-cutting theory, it actually makes a lot of sense when you look at the economics of it all. Running these huge AI models is incredibly expensive. Industry estimates put OpenAI's annual spending at around $28 billion, while their revenue is closer to $20 billion. That gap creates some serious financial pressure to make your models cheaper and more efficient. But is it really just about cutting costs? To get the full picture, we have to look past the hype and the backlash and see what actually changed under the hood. And it turns out there were some really significant, even if they weren't super flashy, upgrades. Maybe the single biggest real upgrade is in something called multi-modality. This is just a fancy way of saying the AI can handle different kinds of information, voice, images, and text, all together in one single unified model. So instead of needing separate tools bolted on, GPT-5 was built from the ground up to be multimodal. So why does this matter so much? Well, for one, it makes AI way more accessible for people with sight or hearing impairments. It also just makes talking to the AI feel more natural and seamless. And because it understands images better, it's a lot less likely to hallucinate or just make stuff up when you ask it to analyze a chart. That's a huge step forward for reliability and opens up all kinds of new uses in areas like education. But of course, as AI gets more capable and woven into our lives, the security risks get bigger too. A major one is something called prompt injection. As you can see here, it's basically an attack where someone crafts a special input to trick the model into ignoring its safety rules or leaking sensitive information. So to fight back against threats like that, especially with a powerful system like GPT-5, experts recommend a defense that has multiple layers. It's not just one fix, it's a whole process that starts with checking inputs, filtering what comes out, and controlling who has access, all while keeping the AI in a secure, constantly monitored environment. And beyond the technical security, a model this powerful really raises the stakes on some big, practical questions. The whole issue of accountability, like who's responsible when it gets something wrong, that becomes way more urgent. And as the tool gets better at creating convincing content, stopping it from being used for mass misinformation becomes one of the biggest challenges for the entire industry. So, after weighing the promises, the backlash, and the real technical shifts, what does the whole GPT-5 launch tell us about where artificial intelligence is heading? One popular theory that came out of all this debate, and it's summed up perfectly by this Reddit user, is that AI development might be on an S-curve. So instead of the crazy exponential growth we've been seeing, progress might be starting to level off, where each new breakthrough is harder to get. And for some users, the kind of meh reaction to GPT-5 seems to point right to that. And this right here captures the huge question we're all facing now. Was the GPT-5 launch a sign that we're hitting a plateau, where the improvements get smaller and are more about things like cost and reliability? Or is this just the quiet before the next truly mind-blowing leap? Honestly, nobody knows for sure, but the answer is going to shape our world for years to come.